Hello, Arbitrariums. All right, so this is another episode of the Arbitrarium a la carte. It's going to be a shorty episode. We're going to talk about, well, we'll say this. I recently watched the trailer for the new Cowboy Bebop live-action series on Netflix. It hasn't hit the screen yet, but I've seen the trailer for it, and they've been doing some promotional ads for it and things like that. And so I thought it might be kind of fun to talk about the success or lack thereof when it comes to translating animation into live action.
In this case, specifically anime, I guess. But
in this case, specifically anime, and that's an important point to make because it's not just an anime, it's a highly stylized anime. So it's a particularly difficult type of animated series to successfully bring to live action.
It's iconic as far as anime goes.
Yeah.
I mean, people who aren't into anime like Cowboy Bebop. I'm one of them.
Yeah, and I teach animation, and I've always loved cartoons, and you've heard me multiple times say that the vast majority of anime is horseshit. Yeah. But when it's good, it's really good.
Yeah. I've only heard of one case where an adaptation of an anime into live action was anywhere even approaching good. This was the Rurouni Kenshin movie.
I heard that too. I've not seen it, but I did hear that was actually pretty good.
Yeah, they keep the stylized, sort of fights, but it's not bad.
Well, the subject matter in Kenshin's easier to translate to live action anyway, because it's not that outlandish. The actual subject matter of Kenshin's not that outlandish.
Yeah, it's also very serious. The most you're going to be spending on is costumes and fight choreography.
Yeah.
It's a very grounded series. Cowboy Bebop, on the other hand, has an episode about evil leftovers.
Yes, that was actually the very first Cowboy Bebop episode I ever saw. It was on Adult Swim, and it was like the second run of Adult Swim. So not even the regular late night run, like the real late night rerun. And it was the first time I'd seen Bebop, and I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was Toys in the Attic, which is the name of that episode.
Yeah.
And I remember what the fuck am I? What the hell is this? I need more.
It is one of the more outlandish the episodes, but
yeah,
it gets
it to me. It's the most outlandish episode. I'm trying to think of one that's crazier than that one.
The Cowboy Bounty Hunter.
That one's goofier.
Okay,
but it's not weirder.
Yeah,
Mushroom Samba is a little bit weirder. That might be the second weirdest.
Yeah. That one's a literal drug-fueled...
Yeah.
It's a mushroom trip.
Except it's not. They think it is, remember? That's one of the things with that episode, if I remember right. They think that they found psychotropic mushrooms, and you find out that they weren't even psychotropic, and it was just all bullshit.
I walked away with something entirely different.
Maybe I need to watch the episode again.
I think the police scanner did not actually detect them. And why would you be trading in mushrooms that could be detected with somebody with basically a tricorder?
That's possible. I need to watch that episode again.
I'm thinking they ate those mushrooms after the episode and quickly realized their mistake.
Yeah, so we have Kenshin. That's one example of at least an anime being translated properly. But as far as Cowboy Bebop goes, the issue that I have with it is, I'm willing to give anything a shot, but when you watch that trailer, you have this problem. It's clear that they're trying to get the color palette almost identical. It's a very bright, it's almost a cartoonish show. And they're trying so hard to get that highly stylized action and movement that it just doesn't work with live action. It looks tacky.
Yeah.
It looks cheesy. And I think the issue that you run into with people trying to make live action versions of these types of shows is that they're focusing on the wrong thing. It seems to me that they're so worried about not capturing the aesthetic of the show that they're not paying attention to the thing that matters when doing something that successfully, which is the tone of the show. You have to tone things down. You have to go from animation to live action, because the reverse is true when you go from one to the other. When it comes to the principles of animation, one of the biggest ones is exaggeration. When you go from live action to animation, you have to exaggerate movements or the characters look wooden. If you animated them the way that people actually move, it looks terrible.
Well, Beetlejuice is an example of the opposite happening. Of something that started in live action turning into an animation.
Yeah, but they had to exaggerate those
Yes.
characters, and it was a successful cartoon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's easier to make a animated show out of a live action than vice versa.
A lot.
Because there have been more successful ones. I mean, I think like the Men in Black cartoon series was actually really good.
Damn straight it was.
The Godzilla cartoon series was better than that original American movie.
That's not a very high bar to set.
Well,
I mean, I thought of another anime that got adapted that was actually decent, and I really enjoyed. Alita.
yeah, I want to watch that.
Yeah,
Battle Angel. I've
That
heard
is a good example of successfully adapting anime into live action.
You
What a-
bored there, Garrett?
I haven't seen the trailers, so I don't have I don't have much to say there. And I had questions that I was going to ask, and then you answered them. So when I can chip in, I will.
Okay.
I'm just
Yeah, so I haven't seen Alita, but I've heard it's really, really good. So I don't know like what seems to make it successful.
Well, it seemed like a very faithful adaptation, but still didn't go full on. They didn't try to capture as much of the look. They didn't try to capture the style. They kept most of what was good about Alita in it, but it's not nearly as colorful. It's not nearly as exaggerated, but you can tell it wasn't inspired by anime. One thing they did do that I found very, very impressive, and really paying close attention to the manga and the anime, was Alita kind of slipped into the uncanny valley, because full cybernetic replacements like hers, they add that in so you can spot them. So you don't just blunder into one on accident.
Right.
Slightly larger eyes, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I mean, there's intention behind.
Yes.
Right.
It's not just because, well, we want to have a CGI protagonist and fuck you, we're doing it anyway. I mean, I personally don't think that adapting animation into live action is necessary, like at all.
I mean, I think it depends. It depends on what your intentions are. Like, I don't know. I mean, I haven't really thought too much about that. Like, while we were talking about it outside, it's like the first question you've got to answer is why. Like, why are you doing this? There needs to be a reason behind adapting it into live action.
money.
Well, in Disney's case,
often the
yes,
case.
they really need more money to afford all the cocaine they get.
Well, maybe I think money, yes, but specifically license. You get to take over the IP.
Oh god!
And as long as you keep doing something with it, then it's yours to do with whatever you want.
Ironically enough, I think it seems to me more reasonable to make a live action adaptation of a video game than of an animated series, because at least with a video game, when it's a video game, the players is kind of dictating the story to a certain extent. So adapting that to a film is like, okay, but now we get to write a specific story.
Yeah.
Like, I get that, but I think the irony behind that is that, I mean, how many successful films have been made out of video games?
Mortal Kombat
1,
2.
Well, okay, the first Mortal Kombat movie was entertaining. I wouldn't
Successful,
call
though.
it good. Yeah, okay, it was successful. All right, fair enough. The second one was fucking atrocious.
Oh yeah, but Annihilation was just good. God, they couldn't even get the guy who played Johnny Cage back, so they just killed him off immediately. He showed up for one day of filming. It's like, okay, here's when he breaks your neck. You can go home with your check. But the latest Mortal Kombat film was,
Fun. And faithful enough.
Taylor stole the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's actually a funny story behind why Kano somehow transitioned from being Chinese to being Australian. In the original game, that was the intent. He was basically a Chinese crime lord. But then the Mortal Kombat movie in the 90s came out, and it's like, Boone, the guy who was behind Mortal Kombat, was like, this is amazing, this is now canon, we're going with this.
The only anime to live action film that I remember watching was Ghost in the Shell.
And I haven't seen that one either.
And the problem that I have with it, it's like you look at the trailer, removed from the actual story, and it's like, this is Ghost in the Shell. They did tone down the colors. They made it more photorealistic rather than, I don't know, acid trip colorful.
Yeah.
But,
Well, you get the aesthetic of the show subtly through getting the tone of the show first. Like that's.
Yeah. I think they did the aesthetics well on that. But my problem was they took all the iconic scenes from Ghost in the Shell, the anime, and then rewrote a completely different story on top of it. So that changed the entire meaning of the story.
Yeah.
It changed the themes. It changed the tone. I don't know why they did that.
Well, at that point, it's not even an adaptation. It's like Resident Evil. They took some aspects, but then wrote their own stupid fucking story.
So I didn't have a problem with, like, the big controversy with Ghost in the Shell was Scarlett Johansson
Not being Japanese.
not being Japanese, which is, if the Japanese didn't care,
And
I
they
don't
didn't.
care.
And they didn't. They did
They-
not give a single solitary shit. In fact, they were confused as to why we were upset about it.
Right.
They also
Anyone who was offended by that, take some chill pills, have a smoke and a poop, calm down.
Yeah. Let that one pass. You'll find another one.
Right.
Yeah.
My problem with Scarlett Johansson being in there is she wasn't a good major.
Yeah.
The major wasn't a wellspring of emotion, but she wasn't a sad sack
Yeah.
either.
And,
She had
and that
s-
also depends on how much you're pulling from the first anime film and how much you're pulling from the series. Because in the series, she has a little bit of a broader emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, more
She
complex
was-
emotions.
In the movie, she was serious and competent, but didn't really lament who she became.
The cake is gone.
So you take that and then you change up the entire story. It's like this has the aesthetics of Ghost in the Shell, but is not in any way Ghost in the Shell.
Let's all take a moment to appreciate the irony of that situation given the title of the property.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
So that's what I'm worried about with Bebop. I'm not a guy who likes anime. I typically don't. There are a few things that I do like. Cowboy Bebop being one of them. I like Samurai Champloo, but that's not surprising. It's made by the same people who did Bebop.
It's basically just Bebop in feudal Japan.
Yeah.
you probably wouldn't like Space Dandy.
Full Metal Panic. I did like Girls in Panzer, which is like the most anime that I've ever watched.
I mean, think about it. It's basically the very starting concept is absurd.
Yeah, it was absurd to the point that I couldn't not
It was
love
supposed to
it.
be fun.
Yeah, it was absolutely entertaining. It made no sense. It's like they're firing live ammunition and no one dies.
Yeah, it's
A mouse shell should rip through an M3.
Don't forget Fumofu.
And Fumofu was just hilarious.
You loved Fumofu. I remember
Yeah,
that.
I said Full Metal Panic.
Oh, yeah, you did that, right. Okay.
That includes Fumofu for those who are following along at home.
Which is the idea behind a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's about it.
Right.
Anything else that I've tried to watch, I just couldn't really get into as far as TV shows. I liked Ninja Scroll when I was a kid. I should not have been a kid watching that.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. There's one. Let's see how you adapt that one into live action, you sons of bitches.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of rape and murder.
Yeah, adapt Ninja Scroll. That's a good idea.
And make
It would be rated NC-17 in a heartbeat.
They get the right studio, they'll do it. I feel like my concern with something like Ninja Scroll is if they get the right studio, are they going to overdo it? Like that would be my concern.
Well, obviously
Shooting for that NC-17 rating.
obviously the person you want to get to play Jubei is Nicolas Cage.
Oh God. Anyway, that just went into a conversation about anime. But
So-
yes, so like, but
I'm worried with Cowboy Bebop is there. I don't know. I need to figure out what I want to say before I actually say it.
I'm afraid they'll just puke a bunch of, politically correct shit in there.
I don't get a sense of that yet. I mean, they haven't done that in the trailers or anything like that. I mean, with Bebop, with the casting of Bebop, to me, it's like you're automatically going to run into an issue with Spike because despite people have bitched that Spike should be Japanese. It's like, well, he's Martian, and you don't know like his ethnicity or whatever, his race is ambiguous. They never mention it. I mean, his last name
ambiguous.
is Spiegel, and he's from Mars.
Yeah.
If anything, he's probably more than likely a German Jewish descendant.
Yeah.
More than likely. And you look at that character, and that is not a Japanese character. Aesthetically, that is not a Japanese character.
Well, I was listening to another podcast called Imaginary Worlds, and they talked about anime and specifically like character designs in anime. They were not designed to look Japanese.
Yeah. No, they weren't.
That was never the idea. They were designed to look, if anything, more Western.
Yeah.
Well, the root of anime.
Either ambiguous ethnicity or like straight up European is what they were going for on that.
Yeah.
So saying Spike has to be Japanese, no. It's why? Why does it have to be just because it's like this kind of comes to that cultural appropriation bullshit. It's like just because something comes from another country, no other country can play with it.
Well, it's one of those situations. It's like, okay,
It's like
we can't have cultural appropriation, but we need to have multiculturalism. Which one is it?
right.
Because you can't have multiculturalism if all the cultures have to stay separated and can't indulge in each other.
Right.
Like you can't have both of those things.
And I mean, shit. There goes a lot of good shit out of Japan. You think the Japanese invented whiskey? They didn't.
No. And the Japanese are perfectly fine making fun of any other race. They do not care. They will go full bore on that shit.
Yeah.
And everyone will laugh.
It's like, should the Soviets have been able to drink Pepsi?
That's our drink. I'm going to get some flack for that one. Right, so going back to specifically like the issue with bringing Bebop into live action, when you watch that trailer, you get... They're trying to stylize it the same way that the series is stylized, all the way down to literally mimicking the opening credits of the original series. I mean, I think it was the right decision to stick with Tank because you can't.
Right.
You can't. There's no option there.
Bebop without Yoko Kanno is like
Yeah.
pizza without sauce.
And, well, one of my friends actually did say that if there's nothing else to be hopeful about with Cowboy Bebop live action, the one thing you can be hopeful about is that Yoko Kanno is doing the entire soundtrack to the live action series. So if nothing else, we're going to get new seatbelts.
Nice.
So there's that.
Yeah.
We have that to look
Fuck
forward
the
to.
show. I just want the soundtrack.
Silver linings, folks.
Yeah. So we'll get that at the very least. But yeah, I think they seem to be, up to this point at least, so focused on trying to capture that colorful, cool, stylized Cowboy Bebop anime aesthetic that they're not paying attention to. I'm not getting this sense that they're paying enough attention to the noir, the fact that this is like an action noir. Like that should be the focal point. And if you're just looking at the trailer like this kind of looks like Cowboy Bebop or it looks a lot like the cartoon, then you're going to miss that. You're going to think that it's hitting that. Because it has, it has, the opening where Spike's smoking and it has the blues and the dark, it has a cartoon version of noir. But it's not, it's going to look goofy if you try to do the cartoon version of noir and you don't actually and you don't actually engage in the live action aesthetic of noir. You've got to get that. Because if you get that, then the aesthetic of Cowboy Bebop will be implied, and it's going to be good.
Well, imagine if they tried to adapt Big O.
Yeah.
That would be a disaster.
That one can
Batman with big robots.
Yeah, that would be Mecha Batman. That was a really weird sound, Nick.
That's the comment I always get, but when I compare it to like the Batman the Animated Series, it doesn't fit to me. It's not a very good comparison. Basically, the only way you actually make that comparison is he looks like Bruce Wayne. That's about it. That and the Butler.
Fair enough.
And the whole Art Deco style.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's certainly an Art Deco quality to it.
But beyond that, the themes are very
True.
different.
Now, in defense of going from animation, going from live action to animation, never mind.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Well,
Yeah. So, are we good? Is that it? Are we done? Are we done?
We're good.
We're good?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're right at about almost 22 minutes, so that worked out pretty well. So, real quick, final verdict. Do we think it's going to be good? Do we think it's going to be bad? What are our feelings on it?
Just give me more seatbelts. I'll be happy.
Okay.
I'm going to be very skeptical, but if the people I trust their taste and they recommend it, well, I'll give it a shot. I've been wrong before. I mean, didn't expect to like She-Ra.
Yeah. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to watch it because I would feel like a jackass if I criticized it having never watched it. I can only criticize what I've seen so far. So I'm going to watch it. I don't think it's going to be good. I hope it surprises me, but I'm not getting a good feeling about it. Other than that, go Seatbelts. Go Seatbelts.